We live in a world that just does not stop, right? It's overwhelming, it's fast-paced, and today we're diving right into an explainer that asks a truly fascinating question about all of this. Why are people in our highly pressured modern era burning out at literally unprecedented levels? And more importantly, what is the proposed spiritual solution to actually fix it?
To put this chaos into perspective, the source throws out this incredibly startling statistic right out of the gate. Get this, Gen Y and Z in Thailand average 9 hours of screen time every single day. 9 hours. Think about that for a second. We're constantly swiping, constantly seeking distraction, and carrying the literal noise of the entire globe right in the palms of our hands. Which really forces us to ask ourselves, are we just trying to fill a massive spiritual void with all this endless digital noise? Is this tech addiction actually just a coping mechanism for deep, underlying spiritual exhaustion? Like, maybe we're just trying to drown out that intense, everyday pressure to be perfect.
So to get to the solution, this explainer is going to walk us through a 5-part journey. We'll briefly look at the chaos of our modern days, talk about shifting from a slave mindset to a child mindset, finding real healing, navigating those deceptive voices out there, and finally, getting a totally new spiritual DNA.
All right, part 1. Chaos in the last days. Let's start right at the root of the problem. We are living in a highly pressured era that constantly demands performance, speed, and absolute perfection. It's a world that wakes up and immediately asks you, so, what have you achieved today? And this worldly system, it breeds what the source calls an orphan spirit. It's this mindset where we are always striving for approval. We live in this constant, lingering fear that we'll lose our value entirely if we aren't perfectly productive 24/7. And honestly, it leads to endless exhaustion. It leads to self-isolation even when we're surrounded by people. We basically end up treating everything, even our spiritual lives, like it's some corporate ladder we have to climb.
Which brings us to part 2, from slave to child. Because the antidote to that exhausted orphan spirit is absolutely not trying harder. Instead, it requires a complete transformation in how we actually view our relationship with the divine.
And there is just such a stark contrast here. Slaves obey because they're terrified. They maintain a safe distance, they view God purely as a strict master, and they focus solely on, collecting good deeds. But children are driven by love. They actively seek intimacy and focus on a genuine relationship, not just checking boxes on a religious to-do list.
This idea really takes root in the book of Galatians. The text uses the term Abba, which is actually Aramaic for a warm, close daddy. And that proves such a vital point. God doesn't want distant, fearful servants. He wants a close family. You don't have to perfectly clean up your life before you approach him. Think about it. A child can run right up to their parent even when they're completely messy.
Okay, part 3, healing and renewed strength. Let's look at how this intimacy actually builds and brings some profound healing to our deepest wounds. Because so many of us are carrying around intense feelings of rejection, betrayal, and loneliness today.
There's a fascinating concept the source brings up regarding the Greek word parakletos, which is often translated as comforter, but the original meaning is actually way more active. It implies someone who is called alongside you to help bear a crushing weight. Imagine you're carrying this massive, heavy log, and you just collapse under the pressure. The parakletos is the one who literally steps in to shoulder that burden with you when you hit rock bottom.
And this comforting thought is anchored right in John 14, which promises that believers are never ever abandoned to carry their emotional and spiritual burdens alone. The Holy Spirit isn't just watching you struggle from afar. He actually sits in the ashes of our grief right alongside us.
In referencing Romans chapter 8, the source points out something incredibly empathetic. In our weakest, most silent moments of total despair, those moments where you're so exhausted or broken you literally can't even form the words to pray, the Spirit effectively groans and prays on our behalf. He communicates our deepest pain directly to God.
Moving on to part 4, compass amid deceptive voices. Because the modern world isn't just heavy, as we've been talking about, it's also incredibly loud. We are constantly forced to navigate this insane maze of worldly logic and endless opinions. So, how do we actually find our way?
The crucial point here is learning how to distinguish the anxiety-inducing noise of the world from the reassuring, truth-revealing whisper of the Spirit. See, the world's voice is going to constantly whisper doubt. It'll tell you you're unloved and force you to rely purely on human logic, which, let's be honest, usually leads straight to anxiety. But the Spirit whispers the truth of your worth, bringing a kind of peace that completely defies normal understanding.
The explainer uses a great metaphor here, comparing the Holy Spirit to a personal GPS that routes you around spiritual traffic jams and traps. And to use this GPS, the source suggests 3 steps. First, just stop. Pause before making any major decisions. Second, consciously tune out all that loud, worldly noise. And third, really tune your ear to listen for that gentle whisper and deep peace. That is your signal for the right direction.
Finally, Part 5, New DNA and Eternal Guarantee. This is where we reach the ultimate goal of this entire transformational journey, receiving a brand new spiritual DNA and a totally secure, eternal guarantee.
The source talks about this as a spiritual DNA transplant. Our old default DNA usually leans pretty hard towards selfishness, pride, anger, maybe a lack of restraint. But this new DNA, what's called the fruit of the Spirit, it naturally produces love, joy, peace, and patience. And the absolute key takeaway here is that you cannot manufacture this new DNA by just trying harder or faking it till you make it. It literally requires an intimate, relational transplant that only happens by spending time with God.
Furthermore, the Holy Spirit is defined as an earnest, like a down payment or a seal. Think of it like a royal wax seal on a package that guarantees no one has tampered with it. Or even better, think of it like a diamond engagement ring that promises a future wedding. It is a definitive, undeniable mark of belonging.
This verse from Ephesians establishes that the Holy Spirit is essentially the ultimate passport and visa. Having this seal proves that the believer's citizenship in heaven is completely secure. It's a guarantee that literally cannot be stolen, lost, or revoked by whatever chaos is going on in the world.
So, to wrap up this explainer, we want to leave you with this really provocative thought. Are you living your spiritual life completely exhausted, constantly trying to earn your keep like some hired servant? Or are you preparing intimately and joyfully, totally secure in your relationship, like a bride awaiting a wedding? Take a moment today to really reflect on which dynamic is defining your life right now. Thanks for joining us for this explainer, and keep asking those big questions.